We're going to tag and bag everything really quickly here, so I'm not going to go into detail, but what I wanted to do was to say take 100 pictures of everything, every little nut and bolt, every cable routing. So let's get right to it. Let's pull this thing apart. Grab rail's off, the exhaust is off, the tank is off, and why I take pictures is everything needs to be back in its OEM original position, because when you're starting with something so original like this one, I mean, most of them are missing these. Most of them have these straps, like one left and it's backwards. So that's what we're going to do, is take photo after photo. Got a lot of stuff off, and up to this point I have not found but 2 bolts that are not OEM. And with the brake completely gone, the lever and everything, I can start to see the rear swing arm. These rear swing arm bolts are always notorious for being rusted up. This one broke loose fairly free. All I did was put the nut, I threaded it back a bit, put the nut on it, put the socket on it, hit it with the socket, it started moving. And then once I couldn't get any more with the nut, then I put a small, would have helped to have a more pointy end, because there's a little dimple in the center that it would have lined up with, but this worked just fine. And that got it all the way through. And you can see it is basically just coming out. Okay, so I've got everything out, all the bolts for the motor, and something tells me the motor's going to come out this way, so I'm going to give this a try. And I might have to move it around a little bit here and there just to get it out of there. Not hugely heavy, but it's bulky. Got the hood cleared here. This is going to help me put it back in by videoing it for you guys. If I get it out. There it is. So, with the motor out, I'm going to be able to clean this, but I can tell already I'm going to have to paint this. I don't know. I mean, it could be shiny. This is obviously the worst part. I think I've got a little oil on my... But the only problem is, I mean, that would get shiny. And of course, all this could really be rubbed out real well. But I've got rust there. And I mean rust, it's just something wore here and took the paint off. It's surface rust. There's really no rust on this thing. This is a Nevada bike, and I mean, I doubt there's even any rust down these holes. So let's get to stripping the rest of this. Get the front end off of it, and just start with a fresh red frame. The rear axle is in really, really good condition. It has got, I believe, the original rear sprocket. And if you can see, the sprocket is still in good shape. Now, it could have been replaced, but they usually booger up these keepers. And they don't really take time to to do the one tab on them. Usually it's I don't know, people do weird things. Now these nuts here, they almost look like they've been off, so not sure. We'll get this thing pulled apart and we'll see what we got. These right here, this pipe wrench has come in real handy on these. They're really thin. It's really, really thin right here, so we'll get in on that. And let's see if we can get this bolt off, if it's a bear or not. Yep. Okay. Now if you notice, I pull these things apart without PB Blaster if I can help it, because I'm a painter. I keep painting in mind. If I've got PB Blaster all over it, I could get bubbles or fish eyes, a little splatter. I plan on painting this rear swing arm. I've got paint coming for it, and I'll get into that more later. So let's get this off. There's marks on this nut, and I'm going to look at them really, really closely and see if it was a chisel that you can pound on it, get it to break loose. But I'm trying the heat first. Part of it is getting the leverage on it. So what I did, I was trying to hold this with both hands. That wasn't working. So I laid this over so it's got a straight line of leverage. I put a lot of heat on it, and then I was able to really bear down on this, and I got it to move. So there we go. This is the hardest part, if you ask me, getting these two nuts off. But there might be more hard parts. So these threads are in exceptionally good shape, and even without PB Blaster, I'm able to, after the second nut went through, I'm able to just do this by hand. So take this rear hub back off. So there's the washer. And then this is spline. It just comes off. This rides on the seal. From here, we should just be able to, like I said, this thing has very low hours. I don't think this may have been adjusted once. I'm not seeing anywhere, unless they just had the proper tool, very meticulous. I don't know if this has ever been broken loose, this piece here. And this, this is the adjuster. So I'll get on the other side. But look at that, there's like very little corrosion. These are in great condition. There's no scoring. And I'll show you a closer look. There's just a little discoloration, but it's flat. There's no scoring. I can't feel anything with my fingernail. Quite amazing, actually. On this side too. Now what I'm also going to do, before I go any further, spend any more time on this axle. So let's check this side first. Now it's kind of weighted over here, so I've got to kind of hold it. Yeah. Yeah, this side looks pretty straight. I don't think these things were ever perfect, but I just don't want something really wacky. So that to me looks good. Now this side's got a little wobble in it. And I'm not sure how much. It's like a little more over here than over here. So I'm gonna have to think about that. So I've got the sprocket off, and I've got it on the wheel balancing rack, and there's a little bit of a couple little notches here where someone hit the ground or hit a rock, but it's fairly straight. Now I've got a press. I'm gonna try and give it a little bit of a tweak here or there, but I can live with that. So let's move on to the frame. Here we are, taking a little R&R from JT's Customs. Ran into about 5 other side-by-side people, and we're just having a good time out here in a beautiful Nevada. At don't even know what the name of this mine is, but there's the tailing, or the where the stamp mill was, and Chico gets to go again. And out here on the trail, we got all the side-by-sides, and we find one of the tallest mountains, and Joe's cooking us.
Fuck yeah, Joe's fucking
fajita quesadilla.
No cheese.
Yeah,
no cheese. And you never know what you're going to run into in the middle of nowhere. So I spent about an hour with a bristle brush and a lot of purple power, and I just know that I'm going to have to paint it. There's too many rock chips, and for me underneath here, this is really lightweight. I've seen these caved in, especially the front here, and caved and notched, and where they've gone over logs and rocks. So it's straight. This is really straight, and I've managed to get most of the dirt out. I've still got a lot of scrubbing to do, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to use a plastic razor blade. I'm going to get all of this out, and then we're going to use the green 3M, and we're going to scuff it, and that'll take about another hour to get this ready for paint. And the one thing you want to keep in mind, it's just a frame. You want it to look shiny. You can see where the sun hasn't hit it, it's shiny, but the whole frame will look like that when I'm done. So I won't bore you in my other videos. If you're looking for some things you think I'm missing along the way here, it's probably because I have it in another video and I don't just want to reinvent the wheel. So next step is to remove the grease that's really stuck, probably remove this plastic if I can. If not, I'll tape around it, and I'll probably tape around these, because these are put in here in such a way that I don't think I'm going to have the ability to get them out of there without destroying them. And the object is to keep it as original as possible. So let's get it prepped for paint. I took the chance to clean out the spray booth because it was getting pretty built up, and the fans had just, overspray caked on them. So I got it all drying out now, but we're gonna go up and look at the frame. It's all roughed up. I used red and green, but you can see it's dull. And if you look close, there's scratching, and that's what you want. But I'm gonna go over it. There's a little bit of areas here. There's an area here that's still shiny. So just a little last touch up before we take it down to the booth. First, we're gonna do the wipe down with lacquer thinner. Having it up on this stand is really nice, but I can tell you one thing, the ability to see it real closely and pick up these shiny areas is nice. And you can imagine where it's going to be exposed, and you can even give it a little bit more where you know the eye is going to go. I mean, you could probably paint this thing just the way it is. In the corners and stuff, the paint gets in there, it sticks, but you definitely don't want it coming out. You don't want little, if somebody wants to use a pressure washer on one of my fresh restorations, go for it. But I don't even run them. I mean, I run them just to show that they run, and then I drain the oil and I put them away. And leave them in super restored condition. There's a couple of reasons that I don't powder coat. I've told you, or I've talked about it before. I'm a now person. This thing's going to be restored in the inside of a month. Anytime I take something to somebody, inside of a month is what they're going to be talking about getting it back to me, and I just don't want to wait for that. Plus, this is one thing about painting it here is I know the quality of the paint. I know it's going to be good. And if you ever do get a rock chip, it's going to chip down to this red. And you may not even see the rock chip. But let's just hope nobody really rides this after it's all beautiful and nice. Yeah, I hate taking things to people. I like to do it all myself. Hope you appreciate that. I'm going to give this 2 rub downs with lacquer thinner. I'm going to do it up here, and I'll do one in the paint booth, and I may even use just the grease and wax and grease remover. Now I asked my body man, my body consultant, which you should, if you're going to do this, you probably should have a paint and body consultant, because I pay him $100 an hour, and he's usually here for an hour, and he only charges me $100, even if he's here for an hour and a half. And I don't need him that much anymore, but when I was first starting, I had 100 questions, and it's really difficult to try and get everything answered and have it make sense off YouTube. So that's one thing. And I asked him, where should you sand? Where do you draw the line in sanding? And he said, well, the only thing you want to sand is where you want the paint to stick. And so that means everywhere. And you can see, after scuffing it, you're taking some red paint off. Just a little bit of primer over the bare metal, And not very much, just enough to cover. Okay. There we go. Set up our gun here. Alright, I'm liking that. Okay. Let's play. So I'm just putting a mist coat on this, and I'm not going to bore you with about 20 minutes because the flame takes forever. Now I've got a very light coat, and there's a lot of places where it's still shining through, but I just want to give it a mist coat, and then I'm going to go over it again and again until I get all of the areas that are coming out at you, but just a little at a time. It helps to get underneath when this is full. I've already got underneath. I'm really close. There's a couple of spots. When you're running around here, you're doing this a long time because every angle, it takes forever. And it takes way more paint than you think. But I think I've got it all. All you're trying to do is cover it so that it doesn't have a real big mill thickness, because that's achieved with the clear. So I'm going to give it one last spot. I see one here. And I'm going to really focus on this area here. The tank covers all this. This is an area I want to keep an eye on. Back here where the ground bar is. All up in here, but really, it's what you're going to see that you really want to get perfect. So now that I'm done with the base coat, I'm going to show you the frame. And it's so hard to get into every nook and cranny. Even the blow-by here is important. You know, when you're trying to make this thing look like it's got 0 miles on it. That's the goal when I'm ever doing my restorations. I want to see something that looks like it would be on the showroom floor when I used to sell these things brand new. I guess that's my love for them. Anyhow, so there it is. There's the frame before the clear. And I won't bore you with the clear. You can look at my other videos and see how I do the clear. It's just clearing it. And here's the clear.
again, I won't bore you with the whole tank job here.
So there it is. All the clear. Probably 2.5, 3 coats. It's hard to tell on a frame because you're painting so many angles. And you could have gone over something a few times, but one thing you really want to keep is the VIN number. Really, you don't want to load it up so you can't read it. So there it is. It's just beautiful and shiny and ready to sit here for 2 days. I'm not going to touch it. No matter what I do, I'm not going to touch this thing for a couple of days. Then I'll bring it up. I don't want any fingerprints in it or any, towel marks, fuzz, anything like that. So the frame is done. After sitting for 2 days in the spray booth, it's back on the stand. Now, from here, it's just a matter of one piece at a time reassembling, which means you got to clean and renew each piece. And the first thing that I did is I pulled out the decal set, and I've used Blue Line. I've used a lot of different decals, especially at first. Bought a lot of stuff online for different bikes. You can't quite get everything in one spot, but Blue Line has got a tremendous amount of three-wheelers and motorcycles, vintage stuff. And they're reasonable, and I've used them before. They really strive for OEM thickness. And it sure looks good on the frame when you've got a brand new fresh decal. So I spent a few hours cleaning the bearings, and they are in great shape. And the races are also in good condition. Now, I'm not sure if this had ball bearings, and they have retrofitted a set of roller bearings, but that's what's going to go back in. This was a bear to try and get all the grease off of this. It was embedded in the plastic. I had to use the side of a chisel, not the sharp edge, just a chisel in the parts cleaner, and just keep scraping. And a little more and a little more would come off. This probably took me 20 to 30 minutes to get it. But I didn't want to put it in the bead blaster because it's still got a shine to it. I don't know if you can pick that up in the video. And I'm going to replate as many of the bolts as are needed. But as you can see, these still have a lot of the plating still on them. And I am nearly positive that these started out their life silver. They could be gold, they could be silver, but with my plating I can do both. And sometimes a bolt will be in between. You see that this has got a gold plating where the sun didn't hit it, but it's turned silver with the chain and all the dust basically blasting it. This is what holds on this plastic underneath the swing arm. So the chain is probably over time just completely sandblasted the plating off that. So I've renewed most everything here, and I will replate some bolts. I have the black plating also, but these are in good enough shape. I try not to if I don't have to. They're still black. They haven't been off so many times that the plating gets rubbed off with wrenches. And it'll show up like this one. If I were to replate this, it wouldn't look any better, because once you put a wrench on the new plating, it gets it, it scratches it enough to bring out a little bit of silver. So these aren't going to really get any better. So I'm going to go ahead and put all this and the steering stem and bearings back in. But before I do that, I figured this is really a good time to end this video and make this the number 2 of a multi-series restoration. So you're gonna pick me back up on part 3, and if you can't hang out in Shingletown that long, then I don't know what to tell you. So you guys in Shingletown, just have another couple of shots of early times and Joe. Try to keep them in line out there. So we'll see you on part 3.